Hi, my name is Jersey Drozd. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist, and today I'm going to be inking and painting this drawing of Orko from Masters of the Universe and, time willing, Astro Boy. Let's get started right now. All right. Start with Orko. I think he's going to be a simpler one to do. And what do I got for tools? Got a couple of, one of these, just like water brush pens. Do I have any water in them? I do. And a couple of Pentel color brush pens and a couple of felt tip pens. The usual tools that I bring to these live streams. And this was penciled in Clip Studio Paint, printed out onto Canson watercolor paper. And I'm going to dive in and start inking. I have not done any warm-up drawings today, so this will be interesting. We'll see how these first lines go. I might choose some safer lines. Actually, this is what I used to do in the old days. How long ago was that, Jersey? Well, it was a while ago. I'm going to go do this little box behind him. For once, I'm actually going to ink the box. So when I was doing all my comics on paper... Oh, hey, Tom. As I was saying, like back in the early 2000s, like 2001, 2002, when I was doing all the art on the boards, I would often, and actually I did all my straight edge work with rapidograph pens, if anybody's ever seen those. It's like a mechanical pen that you can use India ink with, but I would do all of my background straight edge work first. With rulers and everything, would actually, this would be more the traditional look of what I'd be doing, like that, right? But I'm freehanding everything on this one. And the reason I did that was it gave my hand time to warm up. So I didn't have to like jump into inking cold. But obviously I'm not doing that here, so I didn't have much straight edge work to do. And this is part of my ongoing series of cute, brave characters from pop culture media. I actually put out a call on my Instagram saying, who should I draw next? And I got votes for Orko, votes for Astro Boy. See. Here's the shot I chose for Astro Boy. Only finding out later after I sketched this out that that was basically the movie poster for one of the Astro Boy movies. I was like, whoops, well. It's an obvious shot. It has rocket legs. It's going pretty good so far. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. It's still totally gank it. Trying to make sure that I keep some lively lines on here. My lines tend to look a little bloopy when I go too slow. I don't know if bloopy is a technical term they teach in art colleges, but... get that O. Hey, thanks, Michael. Grateful for that. I used to be really uptight about like how crisp the line work was, and nowadays I'm really just digging like how rough and textured some of that stuff gets when you do it on the watercolor paper. You don't do this with your hands all the time, Tom? Yeah. I mean, you're pointing towards, and I don't know if you meant to or not, but like what I'm reminded of, this is one of those things I get kind of like really excited about. So brace yourselves. I need a stinger for this. Like Jersey's going to get excited about like comic storytelling again. In comics, we're dealing with static images, which means one could assume we're at a disadvantage because, this image will never move. And so you can only make it so dynamic, right? So one of the storytelling principles that a lot of cartoonists learn is how to make an image that feels like it's moving. And part of that is kind of creating like a sense of describing before, middle, and after all at the same time. Now, this image may or may not be really doing that so much, but you tend to get like these kind of, I would say, exaggerated looking poses. And this is why superhero storytelling in particular looks so garish to people who don't read a lot of superhero comics, because the characters are always like these wild poses. But part of that is because you're trying to imply motion and movement in a medium that doesn't have it. I personally love that challenge. I find it very interesting and exhilarating. And so for me, it's a feature, not a bug. And so, yeah, when you see the hand like that, like, well, maybe somebody's hand will make that motion when they're in the middle of doing something else, but you're capturing the part of it that's most dynamic and the most cool looking to emphasize that feeling of movement. And then the real trick for me is like, how do you not cross the line into pure garishness, right? Because like we've all, or many of us have seen like Spider-Man drawn by a lot of the more recent artists, and I'm not saying this is a dig on them, because I do think it's appropriate for a character like Spider-Man, who is very dynamic and like he's literally swinging on webs around a city. So you're going to have like really exaggerated body language, but you don't want to draw somebody drinking coffee that way. But you still want to make it look like they're breathing. So like I try to find a little bit closer towards looking like they're breathing, but still wanting some like level of dynamism and energy and motion in what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm actually going to call this one inked because I'm going to do some color effects on the hand. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that the blue line is coming through so strong. I printed it out at 40% opacity instead of 30. So it's dark enough that I don't want to fight with it. I'm actually going to like lean into it a little bit. So The next question is, do I do Astro Boy next? How long have I been going? 10 minutes. That was a 10-minute ink job. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do Astro Boy, and then I will paint one of them, if not both. This one might take a little bit more time because I got all of this fire to do. Let's see where to begin. Where to begin? You know, I'm going to go back to my super wet brush. I love doing this kind of smoke work. Almost an oily looking smoke. I'm going to leave some of those small details to my drier brush. Use my wet brush for the big stuff here. Has anybody ever drawn a Spider-Man comic where Peter Parker has thrown his back out for an issue? Man, that sure sounds like something that they would have done, right? I mean, like, I was a huge Spider-Man fan when I was a teenager. I still love Spider-Man as a character. Into the Spider-Verse is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. But I don't really read the comics anymore as much. But when I think about like the spectacular Spider-Man comics I read growing up, it seems like that's exactly the kind of hard luck they would throw at Peter Parker. Yes, Tom, and I agree. Yes, I've seen some people make comics where they actually take photographs of people doing the poses, and then they basically work off of that as a reference image, and it does have. It adds just like a little bit of fragility and stiffness to it, in my opinion. It can work, because I think you could use that as a reference and then build off of it and stretch it a little bit. I mean, we are, after all, even when you're doing like a superhero style art, you're working in cartoon. And let's think about the word cartoon and what we typically think of when we think of that word. We think of like, you know, animated animation. So yeah. I'm just one artist, though. I mean, your mileage may vary. There might be really good examples of people who have pulled it off, where they're working off of still images that way. What I'm more or less trying to point to is just like an aspect of the medium that I find very satisfying and rewarding, and that some people might look at as a shortcoming. I need my dryer brush for some of that stuff. Yeah, matter of fact, funny you should mention Ralph Bakshi. I just rewatched the 1970s Lord of the Rings movie a couple days ago. And I love that movie. I mean, I grew up with that movie. But man, does some of the stuff look wonky. And I think there are times where it looks really dreamlike. Like... The way the orcs are done, you could totally tell it's people with like paper mache masks, and they just like put a bag on their body and they just like color their eyes red, and it looks really silly up close. But when you see some of that stuff, like with all like the overlays that he does in there, it does have like kind of like a nightmarish quality to it, which I really dig. But man, there are times where it just looks really, really rough, and just it goes from a nightmarish fantasy to like a high school play production. That's kind of harsh language, but it's in that direction. Yeah, the Balrog. Oof. Ooh, that Balrog. Like a dude like a gorilla costume and big boots and like giant non-moving wings, kind of jumping around, and not even really jumping, sort of like slowly hopping. I think that movie really asks you to meet it halfway. I will say, though, that I prefer Nothing against Sean Astin. Is that his name, Sean Astin? Nothing against him. He was great as Samwise, but I prefer the Samwise in the Bakshi film. I feel like that's the Samwise I see in my head when I read the books. Oh, thanks, Casey. I'm glad that the smoke is looking okay. It's going to look better when I get the dry brush stuff in there. I think it's looking pretty okay right now. The structure's good. I like thinking about the physics of it, like how where it's closer to the flame, it's going to be more smoother and elongated. And as you get farther away, the smoke's going to get wider. I have a really fun memory of when I was teaching my comics course in person, back when we could do things indoors. And I was teaching, it was like, what was the age group? It was 9 to 12. And one of the students was having a really tough time drawing an explosion in their story. And so I was trying to help him. And when I saw that there was a teachable moment there, I'm like, all right, everybody pencils down. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you a quick demo on like how to think about how thinking about physics will improve your visual storytelling. And I did a diagram of an explosion. I did like an XY axis, talking about the center of the axis is the 0 moment. That's when the clock starts. It's 0 seconds. And as you go farther out, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. And the farther you go out, the more seconds, the wider the balloons of explosion are going to be. And the closer you are to that 0 second, there's more kinetic energy there. That's the forces at its most intense and concentrated. It's going to be narrower and elongated. So wider plumes on the outside, narrower in vertically, or rather elongated in the direction of movement, right? And these two little boys, they were maybe like 10 and 12. Their parents come to pick them up, and they were showing them this technique with like all of the pride of a kid who won the science fair. It was pretty fun to watch. Especially the parents who were like, yeah, that's what you're teaching my kid, huh? How to draw explosions? Well, yeah. They're 10. I also tell them to draw poop. That's what 10-year-olds want to know. Well, Tom, I mean, were they young for that lecture? Possibly. You know, that's another thing that I personally like about... I'm in a privileged place when it comes to being a teaching artist in that, one, I don't have to grade anybody. I know this. I know that puts me at a distinct advantage over most types of teachers. And so, and also, my classes tend to get visited multiple times by kids. Like, so they'll take it in the spring term. Maybe they don't take it in the winter term, but then they come back in the next spring term, or they come for the summer term. So I have students who take my class for, 10, 11 times. And so I like to hit a little bit over their heads every once in a while, because when I come back and revisit it with them later on, I get to watch it click, right? And also, this is something else that I try to take seriously as a teaching artist, as somebody who wants to be of use to teachers as well, and to teach children that, I know it's very Disney Channel kind of storytelling to show that adults are all just like clueless bullies who just like to order kids around for the sake of ordering kids around. But I try to emphasize, like, you know what, maybe some are, but some adults ask you to do these things because they really want what's best for you. And so I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can to explain to you why I'm asking you to do this and why we do it this way. So when you get to physics class and start learning more of this stuff, maybe some of that will click, and maybe you won't feel so much like... Because, like, again, I told the story a bunch of times. When I was a kid, I don't feel like adults did an adequate job of making me understand why I was doing everything that they were asking me to do. So that's a little piece of my baggage. So even if they only get like 30% of what I'm saying, what I'm hoping they understand is I'm not doing this to be arbitrary. But yeah, that's important context that I should have laid out, is that, yeah, my classes are ones where, like, I actually, I just had this fun experience in my class that just concluded, and it was for 9 to 12-year-olds, and one of the students in there, this was the second time taking my class, and he was telling me about this vague memory he had where this really loud, cheerful guy came to his summer camp and did like a unit on comics. And I'm like, well, that was probably me. And then as we were talking about it, suddenly like recognition clicked and I remembered who that kid was. And I'm like, oh, I remember you now. It's like, you were the kid who was having trouble figuring out a story idea. And I sat down with you. He was 7 years old, by the way, at the time. And I said, what if your character had violent diarrhea? And that kid's face lit up in a way of like, I was giving him permission, right? To be, scatological and vulgar, right? I'm like, well, we still got to, go through the whole plot cycle. You got to go through introduction, conflict, twist, resolution. But what if? And that kid went from looking at a blank page, going like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, to like, just like with all of the fervor of like a Renaissance artist. Why do you like being a teaching artist, Jersey? That's why. And when I brought that up, I'm like, yeah, you were the kid who did it. He's like, oh my gosh, that was you. I'm like, yeah, that was me. Yeah, the thing I tell my students is like, if your heart is pure, there's really no idea off the table. It's like you're going to find the healthy way to approach it. Oh, he had a kid who didn't want to submit his poem to the district contest because it was about Doritos. Took forever to get him to submit, but then he won. See, that's just it, right? It's like, that's the best. That is the best. And yes, Michael, I did recognize the risk that I was taking by introducing that idea into the room. It's like it could have just been like double page spreads of disgustingness, right? But I feel like, well, something I've said other places many times is like, one of the things I love about working with young people is having an energy in the room that gets as close as possible to Lord of the Flies without actually crossing the line. And that takes a lot of work. There's a lot of management in running a classroom that way. I won't recommend it to anybody who's didn't get enough sleep or didn't properly hydrate, because I do sweat through my clothes when I work like that. But the cool thing is you get those really memorable moments where like everybody's activated and everybody's on fire and wanting to make things. And I don't know if who here's seen Dave Pilkey's Cat Kid Comic Club, but that one it's brilliant. It's basically a graphic novel wherein the characters are teaching kids how to make graphic novels. And there's a chapter on make like your worst graphic novel. There's a whole section on how to draw poop, how to draw your dog's poop. And then it's like how to make it science fiction poop. Here's Chewbacca poop. Here's Stormtrooper poop. And it's so wonderfully and cheerfully subversive. It's subversive for a 10-year-old, right? I mean, it's like that is scatological humor is like the transgressive art of the 10-year-old. And I try to honor that. I try not to look down my nose at it because they're 10. And I think that's the brilliance of Dave Pilkey's work, is that he really respects that. Almost done with the smoke. This is taking a little longer than I anticipated. Actually, I knew it was going to take a little while. My brush is getting a little dry, and that's good. This will be a fun one to paint, too. I don't know if I'm going to get to painting this one today because I'm already at 26 minutes in. We'll see. Am I illustrating any graphic novels? Michael, I am so glad you asked. It's like you basically gave me a chance to do a quick ad spot. So, if you enjoy these live streams and watching my process, you can get more of it by checking out baronvonbear.com. It's the next graphic novel I'm working on. It's coming out in 2023 from Iron Circus Comics. And it is the story of, well, I can just read the thing right here. Baron Von Bear, expert in the occult, never once wanted to be an adventurer. But when years of hard work are demolished along with an ancient stone guardian that rendered harmless his collection of dangerous magical objects, he will have to enter the fray at last. And I'm sharing some of my process of making it on my Patreon, but also in a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for free, so you don't have to, pay for anything. And then there's also a Baron Von Bear Discord server, which is linked on that page. baronvonbear.com is where you can find that. So I'm very excited about it. Been wanting to do that book for a long time. And it celebrates all the things I love. Cute, brave characters. It's a little bit of an examination of our ideas of valor and heroism, and how those can be, how you can look at those with a little bit more of a nuanced approach. There we go. This is looking a little bit better. Get some of those fine lines in there and some of those dry lines. And then I can move on to inking Astro Boy himself. Now, another thing I do, keep a little piece of watercolor paper nearby to do a little bit of drying out my brush. Yeah, so for those who are like fans of all of the talking I did on the Art and Story podcast back in the day, Baron Von Bear is sort of, it's me putting all of that thinking into action. And I mean, I always did that in all my comics, but this is a big project. It's going to be a big book. And I feel like everything I've been doing over the last decade has been leading up to what I want to explore on this. Yeah, those soft brush lines or those dry brush lines are just adding like a little bit of extra volume and texture to it. Almost there. And then we can move on to Astro Boy, and then I'm going to paint Orko. So how long am I streaming for? I stream from 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:30 p.m. Central. I'm on the Eastern Time Zone, even though I'm in Columbus, Ohio. And I stream from 1:30 to 2:30, so only 1 hour a week for my public stream, and then I do a Thursday morning live stream only on my Patreon. That is correct, Tom. There is not a boatload of money in publishing, sadly. I know, I mean, I certainly, standing from the outside when I was first starting out, I thought, oh, well, you know, you make books and then you get to make more books and you get to make more books. And each book starts to sell, you know, you make all those royalties off of those books. Sometimes. But publishing industries, like all other industries, they are risk averse. And just because you knocked it out of the park with your last book, if their market research shows that there isn't as much interest for what you want to do next, doesn't mean you're going to get to do another book. I shopped Baron von Bear around for over a year, and I still feel like I am the luckiest kid in the world because somebody wanted it. I heard a lot of no's, and I was ready to pack it in. I was really ready to be like, okay, nobody wants this, and then somebody did. And I've had other pitches out in the world that have gotten an endless series of no's. And then you get the book deal, and you get an advance, and it's something. It's not nothing. But now you got to make that advance last, 18 months to 2 years while you make the book. Do I launch my projects on Kickstarter or Indiegogo? I have not done that yet. I've considered it. But when it came to Baron von Bear, if I were to do that, I would have waited until I finished drawing the entire book. So I would have probably tried to do it as a Patreon-only comic or something that really supported through Patreon. And then when it was finished, do a launch for a print edition of it. So no, I toyed with the idea, but I'll be honest, the idea of doing a Patreon, I feel very nervous about it. Not because I don't believe in it, but just I anticipate it would be an enormous amount of work. And I listen to guys like Tyler James. Tyler James is amazing. Comics Tribe, COMIX Tribe. And he has a podcast out there called Comics Launch, and he does workshops on it. And like he really did a lot to assuage my fears, but still it's like, And the other thing is, I don't know if I have the enthusiastic supporter base to make something like that possible. Are there enough people who are so enthusiastic about my work that I could raise $25,000? I don't know, and that'd be an interesting thing to test. Okay, I'm going to get in tight for this. So one of the reasons I'm talking about Baron von Bear now, even though it's not out for 2 years, is I'm trying to build that momentum around it. I'm going to say, and I know 2 years is a long time to try to keep interest. And so my gamble is that, okay, I hear from a lot of people who really enjoyed what I shared on the Art and Story podcast and the Comics Are Great podcast. I know I'm a pretty darn good teacher. So what if I opened up my process of making the book, watch a graphic novel come together? Would that be interesting to see, so that when it finally hits stores, it's like, you've been here for the whole journey? I know that's not going to be for everybody, but that's the card I feel like I have in my deck. That's a call back to you, Tom. I definitely agree that Kickstarter is amazing, and I feel like it's definitely part of the future of publishing. And if I can build my mailing list out enough, I mean, if I can get enough people subscribing to it, and if I can get enough people checking out my Discord or my Patreon, I wouldn't be against doing something like a Kickstarter, because then I feel like I'd have enough people there to tell about it. But right now, it's like between social media being so challenging to position yourself on because of you're fighting this algorithm. I know it's necessary and I still participate on it, but I can't help but feel a little resentful that I have to play this game with building my marketing campaign, finding the right language to reach the appropriate audience. And now I got to take that into another arena where the rules are invisible to me. I love Instagram, but I mean, I love using Instagram, but having to guess at what's the proper hashtag configuration. What do I want to ask people to do? Should I post a story or a reel? I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man about it. It's just that it's another piece of management that I have to do that I sometimes feel a little frustrated by. And so I'm trying to focus on put a little bit more energy into things where I have more control, like what Tom was saying, like a mailing list, like a Discord server. Patreon, yes and no. Obviously, it's not my platform, so I don't have that much control over it. And to that end, I got to think about other avenues like Buy Me a Coffee or Ko-Fi, all those other ones. This is stuff I'm thinking about all the time, in addition to teaching children and organizing comics festivals. I literally had this conversation earlier this afternoon. I ran into some friends and I was at a bakery picking up some baked goods, and they said, "You sound like you're really busy lately." I'm like, "I am. I would really like a hobby. I would really like to have a hobby. I would like to do something that is just for me, that doesn't make me any money, where I'm under no pressure to make money." And yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of hoops, and it gets really tiring sometimes. And it's like sometimes people say like, "Well, Instagram is only favoring people who use Reels right now." And I sat in on another marketing class where somebody was talking about how Instagram really wants you to have harmony between the image and the description. So if you have a picture of a dog, you should say, "This is my dog," right? That kind of thing. Or "This is a dog," should be in there someplace. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't use it that way at all. I use it more like comics, where the words and pictures are independent, but they support one another. And I got to think about that. And that's the kind of thing where I get a little bit burned out, A motorcycle. Tom, they look so dangerous. Now, right now, the only thing I have that's close to a hobby is going to baseball games. We have a minor league team here in Columbus, and I just love going to their games. And I have friends who have told me that I'm breaking the nerd code by liking the sports ball, but I always loved baseball ever since I was a kid. Around the same time I fell in love with comics, I fell in love with baseball. Just it wasn't the easiest thing to get to when I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Like, yes, Detroit was right there, but going to a pro baseball game is a little tougher. Parking's harder. It's a little bit more expensive. All right, we're getting close to being done with Astro Boy. Maybe that could be part of my crowdfunding campaign, right? Is I do a campaign where I say, like, if we reach this stretch goal, I'll get myself a motorcycle and do Route 66 for book tour. I would not be against that. I've always wanted to do Route 66. Okay, I'm going to draw out my brushes a little bit more, just so I can put a little bit of shading on Astro Boy here. Atom. We've all read Pluto, right? Graphic novel series by Urasawa, where he turns a famous Astro Boy story into like a detective procedural kind of thing. There we go. Brilliant, brilliant graphic novel series. Okay. Yeah, I know. Route 66 isn't what it used to be. I guess I want to go back to like 1968 Route 66, you know, or even before that, before the interstate system was made. All right, so there's Astro Boy. So now it's time to go back to painting with watercolors. I'm going to paint this Orko. How much time I have left? I got 20 minutes. I have an abundance of time. So let's switch cameras so we can see the desk cam and see when I am mixing my colors. So. And actually, I broke out another palette today because I knew I was going to want to work in some big areas. Oh, did my camera froze? Hold on. Oh, I think I lost my second camera. Let's go back to this view. Sorry, everybody. I was trying to do the fancy thing. Well, that's good to know, Tom. I mean, I will take it under advisement. I promise you that. It's not something I've put a lot of thought into, but I have joked that like it'd be fun for me and my wife to go like on a kind of a cross country tour with like a sidecar kind of thing. Oh. Yeah, it was working, but then the battery died on it because it's an iPhone, and those little connectors in iPhones are so fidgety and so fussy. I know there's people who love their Apple products. They're fine. They are very nice. I don't have terrific experience with them myself. All right. I'll go back to my streaming tool on here. And I can see if I can get the third camera working again. All right. I think we might be back in business. Let's see. Whoop. Yay. There we go. Okay. Start by putting a little bit of blue on Orko for some reflection, rim lighting to show the glow effect of what's happening here. Well, that's good to know. That does make it a little bit more of an interesting proposition. Tom, I will let you know if I decide to do it, because especially after this last year, I am in need of some kind of like cool summer trip. $5,000 for a new bike is actually pretty amazing. Where's my little napkins to wipe my brushes on? Are MIA. There they are. Let's get that back in here. Okay. That's better. right. And let's just go ahead and keep going with this blue, because I feel like that's probably... Yep, that is. That's an Orko blue if I ever saw it. Touring the Great Lakes would not be bad. You know, I used to love going up to Lake Superior in the summers. My wife and I were first dating. That was like our go-to activity. We'd go to Paradise, Michigan. And we would spend like a week up there camping. I wouldn't mind doing that again. Okay, let's mix some blue and purple now. Where are you, purple? I want to put some purple straight in there. No, I don't. That's a mess. Don't do that, Jersey. A little bit of indigo in there, too. Let's come back to that. YouTube channel, Hurt on Wheels. She's from your area and loves camping from the bike. Okay, okay. I'll check that out. One thing that I have not been very skilled at in recent years is making time to rest and recharge and do something that's just for me and my family. I've been working very hard over the past couple of years. I feel like I've been on my heels the entire time. So yes, I would love to do more things that are, well, like I said, like when Anna and I would go camping for a week, for like a whole week. Let's do more of that. Well, thanks for stopping by, Michael. That's one way to do it, Tom. Yes. Very light. Get a little bit of that purple in some of these characters here. Another one. I saw one right there. There it is. Okay. Let's do some of the rest of Orko, huh? Now I'll get into that purple and indigo. purple. I'll warm it up just a touch. No, yeah, you were not a person who I would call like extraordinarily subtle, Tom. Go big or go home. I don't need to go back to that cliffside shenanigans to make that point. All right, now I'm going to try to do his scarf, which is more of a pink. I'm going to break out a bigger brush for this. Oops, getting some orange in there. I guess he's got some orange in there. Here's my test piece of paper. That's pretty good. I'll use a tiny touch of purple in it. I'm going to need a deeper red for his little cloak and then an orangish red for hat. How are we doing on time? 7 minutes? Can I do this in 7 minutes? I'm not sure. Just get some of the big strokes done. I'll do the small stuff with my smaller brush. I would hate to go over because I have my time tightly budgeted around these live streams. All right, let's switch. Small brush. I choose you. I have to say, I'm loving having glasses that work. I can actually see what I'm doing now. Break out the spray cans, Tom. All right, let's break out a bit of purple in that red, darken it up just a touch. Still a little bit wet. don't want to be over labor this. Put a little bit more shadow. Then I'm going to call this good and move on to his hat. And I got to do that background yet. I get a little bit shading in here too. We're almost there. Let's get that red-orange going. That's way too dark. Let's lighten that up by spreading it around with some more water. This is the cartoonist's lot, is to always be on deadline and always having to run around trying to... I actually, this isn't the cartoonist's lot, this is everybody's lot, right? We're always scrambling. How do I get this done well and in a third of the time? I used to be really prideful about that. Cartoonists are better than everybody because we deal with these concerns that nobody else deals with. Everybody deals with these concerns, Jersey. Aw, nuts. I thought we were special. Well, you are. Just not in that way. All right. Now, to get a little bit of purple in that. This. We're almost there. Now, we'll do the yellow of his eyes, which won't take but a second, and then I can do that funky background. Yeah, unique is better. We stand apart. We're unique. Let's not get too hung up on being the special ones. I'm doing my best not to overwork this, but I still feel like it needs like a little bit more definition there. And that did not work out. We're going to fix that right now. if there's anything I've learned in the last few years is that like we all need each other. And yes, asking for, gotta be careful when we ask for people to treat us like we're special. A little bit more on that shoulder there. Okay, there we go. Bruno, is that the Bruno that I know from so many years ago? Is this my friend Bruno, who I have enjoyed working with a lot of many years now? What tools am I using? These are Winsor & Newton watercolors that were gifted to me by my wife, Anne. They are like the kinds of little tubes, and it's inside of a little travel case that Anne made me for Christmas. It is so good to see you, Bruno. I was thinking about you, and I'd mean to reach out. And then Anne did me the favor of actually making a little, like taking a regular watercolor brush and just like cutting off the end so it fits in here. And she made this little itty bitty mechanical pencil, which actually has non-photo blue lead in it. So this is actually all I really need to go out and do a painting. And then this brush is just like a water brush that you can get at places like Michael's or Dick Blick. So Bruno, for those who don't know, is one of my favorite people in the whole world. Brilliant cartoonist. Absolutely brilliant cartoonist. That out of there. Need another brush for that. I am over time by minutes now, but that's okay. I'm just gonna live with it. What's gotta be's gotta be. Yep, that's what I did wrong there. I'm using dirty. So what I'm doing now is I got a little paint on the side. I'm gonna try to brush it off real quick with some water and then a napkin. All right, let's do this background so I can wrap this up. No, Bruno, it's actually I'm going to send you a message because yes, I've been thinking about you and I wanted to pick your brain about working on something video related. If you have the time, so if your email address is still the same, I will reach out to you. So I'm trying to imply behind Orko that that's Eternia back there. So I hope you've been doing okay, Bruno. I know this has been a bananas, bonkers, clown time year. All right, let's get the other side. Yeah. It's not, we can't do it because it's not safe. I mean, it's getting better, but I mean, we would normally be planning a 2-calf in like, December. And in December, we had no idea what the world was going to look like by June. So, yeah, it has to be another one where if we do anything, we just do a couple virtual events. But it sure looks like we'll be able to do something next year, which I'm excited about. Okay, so now I'm going to paint the Eternian buildings, and I need to come up with that weird sort of fuchsia that the buildings are. And I'm guessing what I'm going to want to do is maybe add a little bit of brown. My intuition. My intuition is saying put a little bit of brown in that red jersey. Darken up just a touch. Maybe put a tiny, tiny bit of indigo. A little bit of indigo goes a long way with this paint. Okay, let's see what I can do. I just moved to Ohio, 2 years ago, and I am not eager to move anyplace else for a while. Moving house is the worst. No, it's not the worst. There's a lot of worse things than that, but it's not fun. So I just got to finish these Eternian buildings, these like sort of color silhouettes, and then I'm going to do the last color effect on Orko's magic, and then this is actually done, and I will have to paint Astro Boy next week. Next Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:30 p.m. Central Time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Take this brush real quick. See if I can't blend that just a little bit more. Bruno, I hope that drawing has been treating you well and that you've been continuing to make some kind of cool things for me to see. I haven't looked at Line Webtoon in some time, but I will check to see if there's any updates. Oh, cool. I'll have to check out your Instagram. Awesome. I am very excited. I am so excited. Yeah, Tom, I think you got me beat on moving. I have lived in Arizona, Texas, Michigan, and Ohio, and that does it for me. All right. All right. Time to finish this up. I'm very excited to get this done. A clean piece of napkin paper here. There we go. Okay, how are we doing, Orko? Are you ready for your final touches? Yes, I am. Okay. Get my blue pen out. Having a multi-pen handy is always a good idea. Add a little bit of definition over top of these blue lines. By the way, if I don't totally screw this up, this painting will be available for purchase at tinyastronaut.com, which takes you to my Etsy store, which is just Etsy, username Tiny Astronaut. Why Tiny Astronaut jersey? Well, my wife and I happen to be NASA heads. We did do a book about the history and science of rockets. So we got a thing about space and astronauts. Why tiny? Well, there's more of a story to that. I don't have time to go into here. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. Okay, now, let's get some blue on some of the little surrounding bits of sparkle and nonsense. Yeah, we're back to drawing hands in a way where they never look that awesome in real life. Unrealistic. But that's the name of the game. In a comic, everything is lines, which means nothing is real, which means everything is equally unreal, which means you have all sorts of potential for special communication. Now I'm going to break out my purple. Add in a purple line here. Just give it a little bit of extra oomph. And I'm going to put purple on the little diamond guys too. These multi-pens you can get at Jet Pens for like, I want to say $5. And the refills are usually like, I think it's like less than $1 each. Just do a search for multi-pen on jetpens.com. They do not sponsor this live stream, but they should. I think it might be done. One more thing to do. Get a little bit of my white pen out. A little bit of his eyes. Little bubbles there. Dare I try to put in one little last bit of that fuchsia color here? See if I regret it. All right, see you, Bruno. Thanks for hanging out. I think it's done. I think I painted Orko. So thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. It was a little bit of a longer stream than usual. I'll be back next week at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch it on my YouTube or my Twitch. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, giving the video a like helps more people find this and, interact with my stuff. That'd be fun. And once again, you can also, join my newsletter at baronvonbear.com, and this will be available for purchase at tinyastronaut.com. So thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with me. I'll be back next week. Until then, I've been Jersey Drost of jdrost.com, Jersey Drost on Instagram, and so on and so forth. Okay, bye.